Hey everybody, welcome to part 4, the final part in this 4-part series on this latest tool hoard. Tonight we're going to get right into it. This is going to be the stuff that I went back and got on the second trip. I actually went back on the second trip to look at an item I saw on the first trip that I was considering making an offer on but didn't make an offer on, and that was a digital mid-toil height gauge. It was an older model, and there was no life in it, so we didn't know whether or not it was just a dead battery. Of course, the seller insisted it was just a dead battery and that it probably worked fine. Well, we kind of got to a sticking point there. He would not take less than $250 for this as is. I offered him $200 for it. I figured I'd roll the dice and take a chance at $200. There was no case. It had some light surface rust on it. It was an old unit. So when we couldn't come to an agreement, I decided to sweeten the offer, and I said I would go buy the battery, bring the battery back, put the battery in, and if the unit turned on, I would give him his $250. He didn't want to do that. He had pretty much set in his mind that when he offered it to me on my first trip up for $250, he actually told me on the second trip that he resented doing that, but he would honor that deal, but that he really feels it was worth a lot more money. Of course, he's comparing it to working units that he's seeing online being offered for sale. So, long story short, I didn't end up buying that unit, and I probably never will. He claims he's going to be putting it on eBay. I said I look forward to seeing it on eBay so I can put it in the best offer. So we kind of had a little chuckle over that. We'll see. Who knows? Maybe a month from now, if I'm in that area of the state, I'll drop in to say hello and see if it's still sitting there. All right, so but he did find another box of goodies. So this is all stuff I hadn't seen on the first trip, that I think for the most part, except for one item. So let's get to that first item right now. So this is a bit of a mystery item. Of course, this is a stare-at drop indicator. Nothing unusual about that, and it's a nice drop indicator. Pretty good condition, and it's a stare-at, so it's got that going for it. When I saw this on the first trip, I was intrigued by this fixture that's attached to it. It appears to be a shop-made fixture, and my initial guess was that this was for either checking a large diameter or for checking roundness. So if you can imagine, we had a large diameter like this, and if someone designed this jig very precisely, which it appears they have, these triangles actually lock into little spaces here, so they have fixed positions. I can't just loosen these cap screws on the top here and slide these freely along a rail. I can only take the cap screws out and either move the thing over, one or two positions on each side. So if you know the fixed position, you might be able to actually figure out how much deflection you would get on this long travel indicator for a known diameter. So the idea would be you'd come in and this obviously I would have to move these in for something about this size. Okay. So the question is, why do this instead of use a large micrometer? Well, maybe they were making a whole bunch of these and they're just making the same repetitious measurement over and over again, so they decided to design this jig. The other thing that's interesting is these triangles are thinned out here, so into a blade, okay? So into a thin part. So if it were to just measure something like this, for instance, ideally you would want these to be flats so that you don't get any error from this tilting. But the fact that they went through the trouble to add these blades to thin this out like this indicates that maybe this is to actually take that measurement in a groove. So maybe it's to measure like an O-ring groove or something on something. Okay? So I didn't know whether or not there was a actual name for this type of jig or what. So it intrigued me enough that I wanted to get it. And the problem was, on the first trip, he insisted on wanting bottom price of $40 for this. And the thing is, I've got so many drop indicators now that it was clear to me that if I was going to buy the drop indicator, it was probably going to be for resale. So I had to keep that in mind. And this is really the mystery thing. How much was this worth? Well, I couldn't think of a valid use for it off the top of my head. So I thought, well, maybe it's not worth anything. But it just, it just kind of caught my fancy. So what ended up happening was, on the second trip, when I went back, we were haggling over something else, and we were kind of close on the price on that. And so then I said, well, how about this? Since we had found in the new box that he had found, we found another Starrett drop indicator that was loose. It was just in there by itself. I said, how about this? I said, you wanted, the reason why he was really sticking to his guns on this is because he was thinking, worst case scenario, he wanted to keep this indicator for himself. Now we had another Starrett. So I said, well, how about this? Now you've got this other Starrett you can keep. I got him to give me a little bit of a deal on another item by bundling it with this. So essentially I ended up giving him his $40 for this in trade for him acquiescing on another item by maybe $10. That's how I came into possession of this little cream puff. So I've already posted this online on a couple of forums, and no one has chimed in to say, oh, that's a molecular beam deconstructor with a factor of X, or nobody said, hey, that's definitely. Everybody seems, the general consensus right now is that this was a special one-off job that somebody had that needed to be done, that they made this for. So it looks to me like I'm probably going to be saddled with this for a while. I could sell the indicator. I'll have to look and see. This is actually a pretty nice indicator. I don't know if I'm gonna keep this one for myself or not. This one. Oh, you know what? This is a Starrett model 25-881, and it just occurred to me that this is a metric one. It says 0.01 millimeters. Huh. It's a metric indicator, and I didn't even notice it. That's probably going to be going up for sale. I don't really think. I've got like one metric indicator I kept. I think it's a Messner, and I kept that one in case I ever need to do anything metric, and all of my other indicators are non-metric. So that's the story behind that. Sorry if that's a longer and more boring story than you wanted to hear about that. So let's move right along. So with the exception of the couple indicators on the first trip that he wanted to keep, which were Federals and nothing that fancy, and the one Starrett that we found on this second trip that he ended up keeping, I ended up buying the rest of his indicators. I ended up getting another Tech-Lock. Okay. Actually, I take that back. This one looks like the Tech-Lock, but it's actually has no brand whatsoever on it. So this is an even more generic indicator. I got this one for $5. This is a thousandths indicator with 1-inch travel. This is a cheapy indicator though, but I got it for $5, and it'll be probably offered for like $10. It's interesting how this is oriented. I'm wondering if somebody unscrewed this and moved it 90 degrees, because it's not typical. Although I have seen some drop indicator stands that this would fit on like that. So, all right. So enough about that. And then we got a Federal. Okay. This is the Miracle Movement. Well, can't believe this. I was in the process of filming part 4 here, and the camera battery died, and I got busy with other things, so it's been several days since I have had a chance to get back to completing part 4 here. And what has happened is apparently I inadvertently erased the file I had on my phone that I used to tally up and keep track of what I paid for these items on my second trip out. So when I went back out to this guy's place and bought some more stuff, which is the stuff I started showing you here, I can't believe I did that. So that's disconcerting because, well, not only am I not able to share it with you, which I said I was going to do, but more importantly, I really have to kind of take a guess at what I ended up paying for some of this stuff so that I can sell it without shooting myself in the foot. So where we left off, I was just about to tell you about this this indicator. So this is a Federal thousandths indicator. This is a model C81 fully jeweled miracle movement indicator. It had this strange attachment on here somebody had made, just held on with a set screw, so I removed it. So I'm not sure why they would have designed it to do this. So conventional tip could easily be put on here, and it works perfectly fine. I probably gave about $10 for this because I'm not a big fan of the Federals. They're okay, don't get me wrong. I've had quite a few of these. I still probably have a couple. The only ones I've kept were the oversized ones that were interesting to me, and I actually sold a couple of those too. But anyways, so this is just going to be a cheap indicator for somebody. So unfortunately, I don't remember what I paid for a lot of this stuff here at all. I do believe I got this for $5 or $10, which is a really good deal. This is a Mitutoyo gauge block. It's a 2-inch. There's no grade on it, but this appears to be a brand new, unused gauge block. Yeah, so that's still in the plastic. No signs of any corrosion or rust on it. So these are actually pretty pricey, these replacement gauge blocks. I assume they sell these for replacements for when you have a set and you damage one, maybe, I don't know. But I know I'm not into this for more than like $10. So that's a good deal. This little clamp right here, tried to get him to throw this in for free, but he insisted I pay for it, so I ended up paying $5 more. I bundled this with something and paid $5 more for the other thing just to get this clamp, so I'm kind of into this clamp for $5. Why I wanted this clamp was because it had a look to me that it seemed familiar to me. It looks a lot like one of the old clamps on one of the early Brown and Sharp, maybe, magnetic stands. Maybe not. I don't know. That's probably junk. These are all he had left from micrometers. Didn't pay much for these. No cases. Just, you know. This is an NSK 2 to 3 inch. This is a 10,000ths micrometer. And it's actually one of these counting or digital micrometers, as I've seen them called. And what's nice about it is it actually works perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with it. It's just kind of beat up looking. It's got carbide tips. It's got the ratchet click stop here. And these micrometers are actually pretty nice micrometers. These are made in Japan. These aren't cheap Chinese junk. Okay, I just sold a beautiful one of these, a 1 to 2 inch, that looked brand new with the original case and the paperwork and everything. So maybe I'll reach out to the buyer of that one and see if he wants this one, even though it's not as pretty, but it's still a good working micrometer. This one is a Viz. It's VIS, but I believe it's pronounced VIZ. Made in Poland. This is a Polish-made micrometer. Okay. So got a part number on it, but it looks like it's 75-100 maybe. It's interesting. It says, oh, wait a minute. 0.01. I think it's a metric micrometer. The 75-100. I believe this is a 75 to 100 millimeter micrometer. How do you like them apples? I didn't even notice that when I was buying this. So this is a Viz, made in Poland, 75 to 100 millimeter micrometer. And this is actually in pretty decent shape. It's too bad it doesn't have the original case. These also have carbide faces. Click stop. And the last micrometer in the bunch is another 436 Starrett. I'll go with 436. This is one of the nicer ones because it's got carbide faces. Because there's a lot of variations of these. It's carbide faces. It's got the thimble lock here. And it's got the click stop. Okay. So some don't have the click stop, some don't have the thimble lock, some don't have carbide faces. This has got all of them. So this has got everything going for it except for the fact that it's been around the block. You know, it's a little beat up. I would love to have a full set of these in a wooden case. But that'd be big bucks. Still haven't decided what I'm keeping for micrometers. I've got some over there that are my fallback, so I've sold quite a few micrometers already. I haven't decided yet whether or not I want to try and build a set of Brown and Sharps or a set of Mitutoyo, or who knows, maybe even Tessa or Etalon, whatever. I don't know. But this is a candidate for me to keep, actually, even though it's not in the greatest of shape. Just because it's got all the features I'd like to have in a 436. Again, I don't know what I paid for this, but I do remember battling with him back and forth on this thing. Finally, I ended up going online to show him that somebody was trying to sell one of these for big money, but in fact, they hadn't sold it, and they had been trying to sell it over and over again for a while, so I don't even know if that belongs in here. So this is a digital drop micrometer. Micrometer. You idiot. This is a digital drop indicator. This appears to be in pretty good shape. I can see some rubbing on here. Okay. I don't know if this is supposed to be AC power with battery backup or what. Hey, look at that. That's kind of cool. Even the stupid AC adapter actually says Brown and Sharp on it, so you can overpay for this. When in reality, all this is a regular AC to DC adapter, and it puts out 9 volts, 300 milliamps. It's got a very standardized plug, probably a 3.5 millimeter. I got this really cheap in the end because the final analysis was that when we plugged it in, it did nothing. And we even double checked the outlet that I was plugging it into for test voltage, because we were like, oh, yeah, it should work. Why wouldn't it work? But yeah, this does nothing. Of course, we want it to be the adapter, because if it's just the adapter, well, we can just get another adapter. I just said how common this adapter is. Oh, this does belong here. This is a finger lift. So you screw this into your stem on the bottom of the indicator and then put your point underneath into screwed into that. And this is just so you can reach in under the drop stand and pull up on the stem. It shows it right there. Oh, this is interesting. This actually says operation from either an AC line using a DC adapter or a self-contained rechargeable battery. So, according to the instructions here, there's a battery inside here, and I'm wondering whether or not that's what's killing this thing. You know, if the battery is really, really dead, it might be sapping all the power from the AC adapter, and it could be why it's not working. It's just, you know, wishful thinking, I think, on my part. Yeah, see, I just read in the instructions here, it says right here, before using the gauge, it says the battery may become completely discharged during storage and shipment of the instrument. Recharge the battery for 24 hours and do a system reset before the first use of your digital dial plus. See section 5 for complete details. If you store the indicator for several months without use, you may have to repeat the initial charge and system reset in order to restore normal operation. Note, nickel cadmium rechargeable batteries often require 3 full cycles of charging and discharging to restore their full rated capacity after a period of extended storage. Well, this thing's been in extended storage for quite a while for sure, so I think what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to charge this thing for 24 hours. Well, it's the next morning, so it hasn't been 24 hours, but I did have this plugged in to the charger overnight, and it's still, even with the charger plugged in, it still will not power on, so there's still something not right with this thing. So I think you could probably look forward to an upcoming video where I actually open this up. I'm curious to see what the NiCad battery that's inside this thing looks like. I wonder if it's all leaked out and corroded all over everything, or if it's a sealed unit. So anyways, let's move on. Next up is this really early Federal test indicator on its own stand. This is a model 598-R-1. This is a really kind of interesting one. It's obviously a very early one. It's you know, it's seen better days. Got quite a bit of rust around the outer bezel here. Some rust on the I guess it's almost like a little pedestal, but I guess it would also constitute the anvil on this thing. But this is kind of really a cool thing because this is all one casting, and the actual back of the indicator is part of the casting. So this is all one casting here, and then the indicator is attached to that. So I'm wondering whether or not this is a pretty normal Federal indicator, that they just, instead of having a conventional back on it, that it actually just screws to this. Because if that's the case, then you know, you could maybe find a Federal indicator this size. This is a larger face than the, you know, standard. Maybe you could find an indicator in much better shape than this and put it on this kind of neat stand. It also has Something else which is unique, which it's got this lift lever. And again, this is built right into the casting there. You can see it, the way that's made. It's really kind of a unique, cool, old thing. I think I saw one of these once before. I can't remember if it was a Federal or it might have even been a Starrett version of a similar thing, and it was in its own wooden case. Saw that at a flea market, and I think the guy wanted $50 for it, and I ended up not even making an offer because I didn't really see where I would go with it. So at first I thought this was a model 598, but then when I looked at it under magnification, I could clearly see that it's a model 59B-R-1, and it must be a rare model because I can't find it anywhere. I can find model 58Bs, and they look different than this. So it's a model 59B. So unfortunately, it's going to be hard for me to place a value on it just because I have no way of knowing. Nothing to compare it to. Nothing sold on eBay previously with that particular part number. And it does look quite a bit different than the 58B. So it's an interesting piece. Pretty sure, I think I paid $20 or $25 for it because of the condition it's in. I also do not quite understand or know what the purpose of this is. This actually just looks like an indicator point. Get a look at that. Looks like an indicator point. So if I pull this up, if that would actually fit in there or not. Yeah, that's just a set screw. So this was just stuck in there almost as if for storage. But that's a point off an indicator. Yeah, I could clearly see the threads on one end right there. Whatever you would measure under this thing would have to be pretty small. Alright, there we go. Point's in there now. This is for really small parts by the looks of it. That makes it even more puzzling as to why they would even bother having a multi-revolution indicator on here. Something with the travel that this is capable of doing. Oh well. That's what that looks like. I thought it was kind of neat. This next item I can't remember if I gave $50 or $60 for, and it's actually in known good working condition. It's worth probably quite a bit more than that, but because I wasn't sure. But because I wasn't sure, I haggled on this and ended up getting it. So when I initially went to turn this, it felt kind of weird to me. But as I turn it more and more, it seems to be getting better and better. Initially, it almost felt like it was completely locked up. So I'm thinking there might be grease in here that's kind of coagulated. All right, so let me turn this around so you can get a better look at it from this angle here. So what this is I believe it's referred to as a quill master. This is a genuine, by the looks of it, yeah, here it is. It's marked right here. Right here you can see this is marked Bridgeport. This is a genuine Bridgeport accessory. What this is designed to do is this part right here, this diameter here, is designed to fit right over the quill of your Bridgeport, and then you would install a collet for this shaft. Okay, and the collet would clamp down on this shaft to drive this shaft, which in turn will drive this little, well, it's not really a collet, but this little shaft right here with a hole and a set screw in it for very small drills or end mills. And this is designed so that you can reach down inside of, say, a casting into a tight space. So by design, this is a little trap door here to just where oil would go in, but by design this is made so that you can loosen these three screws right here. Okay, and when you loosen these three screws right here, this whole thing is designed to be able to swivel around. So let me demonstrate that. We'll loosen these three. Well, the teeth don't look damaged on here or on here, so I don't quite see what is stopping this from doing what I thought it was supposed to be able to do, which is bend around this like that. All right. All right, so the good people at Wells Index were smart enough to make their spindle and quill size pretty much identical to the Bridgeport. So even though this is a Bridgeport attachment, it fits perfectly on my Wells Index. Once I got it on the Index mill so that I could put a little bit more leverage on here, I was able to get this to work free. It's just, I think it was stiff from years of just sitting. And I've got it clamped down now. I've got it oriented this way. Obviously, the other thing you can do is you can loosen this screw and you can swivel this head around 360 degrees. So between the fact that you can swing this arm all the way up from almost 90, I think 90 degrees on each side, or anywhere in between, and this 360 degrees, you could really reach down and do some interesting tight space, reach into some really tight spaces with this thing, which is what it's designed to do. It's not something you need very often, but for those few times when you do need it, it can be an invaluable accessory. And it works perfectly fine. I'm thinking there might be some sort of gearing in there that actually is increasing those RPMs on that, because that seems like it's spinning a lot faster. I don't even have the... I've got the motor on my VFD right now, and I'm only at 15 hertz, which is quarter speed. Yeah, that goes really fast. So I'm probably going to keep that Quill Master for myself. And now the final item from this tool hoard buy is actually not really a machinist item at all, but it's an interesting item. This is a TI-95 Pro Calc, Texas Instruments calculator. And what's great about this is that not only is it the calculator, it's in the original box, and it comes with the user's guide and the programming guide. So this would have been, back when it was sold, this would have been quite an expensive item. This would have been a scientific calculator on steroids, for lack of a better term. Okay. So look at that thing. How cool is that? So I think I paid 10 or 20 bucks for this thing in as-is condition. We have no idea if it works. It doesn't power on. I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's because the batteries are either not present or dead as a doornail. My only concern is whether or not the batteries have leaked and caused any damage. This appears to be, it says ROM RAM, so this appears to be a memory module. It's nice that that's present. ROM stands for read-only memory, so this would have some sort of programming instructions on it that stay on there all the time. And RAM is random access memory, so that would be memory that the computer, the calculator, can actually write to and read back from. So I'm assuming there's probably a way that this pops out of this case. There we go. So pop this out of this case, and we get to see what exactly the mystery is going to be for batteries. Oh yeah, great. I'm saying great because this uses AAA batteries by the looks of it, instead of the god-awful expensive button-type batteries, which I expected to find several of. Oh, look at this. This wasn't even brand new when they bought it. It was reconditioned. Sticker like that would indicate that it was probably reconditioned at the factory and resold. The moment of truth. Hey, cool. Memory cleared. Okay, I'll take your word for it, Mr. ProCalc, because I don't know what you're doing. So, as a regular calculator, I'm assuming we can just come over here and go, well, 9 times 9 is 81, yay! But of course, this is supposed to be able to do much more than just that. Oh, what, you might ask? Yeah, I was afraid you would. Let's see, we can actually type in, I wonder if this thing can even be programmed in BASIC or something like that. I think, since we don't know what we're talking about, or at least I don't know what I'm talking about, you should consult the user's guide. I notice in the front here there's something called function reference, and this might give us a clue as to what this can do. Because there's sections here. There's math functions, there's trigonometric functions, hyperbolic functions, number functions, statistics functions. This is display formats, conversion functions, memory functions, and printer operations. So you can hook up to an external printer. You know, in the conversion functions, it's interesting. There's polar to rectangular, so that's for coordinates. Angle conversions, decimal mode, hexadecimal mode, octal mode. Yeah, I mean, if I were an engineer, I would probably understand a lot of this, but I'm not. So the most important thing about this is that I recognize that a lot of these mid-80s, which is what this is, high-end scientific calculators are starting to become collectible and bringing pretty good prices on eBay. So I had a good feeling that if this was a working calculator, that in fact it might actually be worth quite a bit more than the $20 I paid for it. And I do believe it will turn out to be that way. I've seen one go as high as $140. I've seen some go as little as $50 to $70, but all of those didn't have what this has, which is the 2 books and the hard case and even the original shipping box. So this is going to be a nice score for me. I'm going to be able to sell this and recoup a lot of what I paid for, well, pretty much. I mean, I could probably sell this, and the profit I'll make off of this will pay for my Quillmaster that I decided I'll keep. All right, enough about that. So that's going to wrap up this segment. Probably in another week or so, I will show you the first flea market finds of the year, where it was actually a flea market that I went to. It was flea market, part of the tractor show, and I'll show you what I scored there. A few interesting items, but it actually ended up being kind of a disappointing day overall. All right, so take care. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you subscribe and hit the like button.